Remember the talk about we'll sell Air New Zealand in the private sector? Yes, but we learned. And this national government has learned nothing. Labor did not sell a single asset in the fifth Labor government. For 9 years, we did not sell those assets, Mr. Speaker. We had to buy them back because when the National Party sold New Zealand Rail to Mr. Fay and Mr. Richwhite, they asset stripped it. They ran it into the ground. It was sold at bargain basement prices by the national government, and we had to buy it back. And I say to this government, go to the electorate in November this year on selling the assets, because you will listen to what New Zealanders are saying. Mr. Key said arrogantly last week he didn't care what New Zealanders thought. Wasn't that what the member said? Wasn't that what the member said? Well, maybe we'll table the transcript. He said that he didn't care what New Zealanders think, but New Zealanders care deeply about selling assets that they own, where the benefits come back to New Zealanders. And then there was that other issue, it was about farmland. And I heard something that Mr. Key said that I agreed with. No, it's not totally surprising, but he said New Zealanders should not be tenants in their own land. Well, I wonder, Mr. Key, why it was that German interests bought up in the last couple of weeks $100 million worth of dairy farms. I wonder why that was. More than they had spent in the 5 years previously. We're losing those assets. I wonder whether the national government will stop the Chinese consortium from buying up Crayfor Farms. I wonder whether they'll do that. And you know, Mr. Key, yesterday I went to Rotorua and I met with a big forestry company. And you know what they said to me? They said what we're really worried about is that the American interests that own the cutting rights to the forests will find it more profitable to sell the logs overseas without being processed in New Zealand, rather than keeping the 290 jobs that we create for people in Rotorua. That's what New Zealand enterprise is worried about. And this government has mouthed the words and the rhetoric, but they've done nothing about the sell-off of New Zealand to overseas interests. Mr. Speaker, this government has failed. It's failed to create growth. It's failed to bring unemployment down. It's failed to keep people's incomes ahead of the cost of living. And it's failed to make New Zealand a more equal, a fairer place. For 9 years under a Labor government, we reversed the trend to a more unequal country, and we treated New Zealanders inclusively, working for families, decent rises in minimum wage. And Mr. Key has turned the clock back to make this country less fair, less equal, less opportunity for every New Zealander to make the most of what he or she can contribute to this country. After 2.25 years, this is Mr. Key's responsibility, and this election will be about restoring to New Zealanders a fair go, making sure that people pay a fair share and get a fair share in return, and making sure we don't attack the vulnerable, our children at early childhood education who are paying higher fees, our adults wanting second chance education, in adult and community education, and the old people, Mr. Key, that you have taken off the health care, the home care that enable them to live in dignity in their own home. There will be a Labor-led government, and we will return fairness to New Zealand, and we will return growth and living standards and jobs to this country.